Well, good Wednesday morning to you. Hope you're doing well. We have kind of a fall day outside. We've been waiting for that for quite a while, but I do like the cool, crisp temperatures. We didn't get much rain out of that storm that passed through on Sunday night, but got a little bit. So hopefully that helped in some way. Just a couple things as we're waiting for folks to connect. Of course, tonight we'll be live uh, for our midweek Bible study that starts at 6:30. And then this Sunday, we will continue our series entitled No, That's Not in the Bible. And we're going to be looking at the phrase that God moves in mysterious ways. People make that statement a lot of times, but it's not in the Bible. And God may be to some degree not understandable in the fact that our knowledge is limited, but there is much to know about God and how he works in the lives of people. So we'll be talking about that Sunday morning. All right. Well, we're in Ecclesiastes chapter 11 and navigating through the lasting lessons from life. I don't know, since the last time we were together, has there been any life lessons that you have learned from life? Uh, I think if we're aware of it and we're conscious of it, uh, there are a lot of things to learn each and every day of the life that we live. And Solomon begins this whole chapter, the 11th chapter here, by how to reason through life, because there's some things that he always comes back to the fact that there are things that we just do not have control of. And those seem to be the things that we tend to obsess over. And I think that's because of human nature. This past Sunday, with our morning series, was the statement that when God shuts one door, he opens the other. And one of the quotes from Henry Blackaby related to the fact that we tend to focus so much on the closed door that we fail to acknowledge or recognize what God is opening to us all around us. And of course, as that relates to the will of God, I told you that the shorter answer, the larger answer is, of course, what is God's will for my life? But sometimes it's good to back up and just ask ourselves, what is God's will? And in doing that, what we're doing is we're saying, God, what are you actively doing all around me? And, he's there. And that's when the life that we live can lend itself to some experiences and lessons that will be beneficial to us. And so in verse 1, we talked about the fact, cast your bread on the surface of the water, for you will find it after many days. That's financial advice. He was talking about most likely related to his shipping industry. And he said, don't, put all of one commodity in one ship. That ship might be lost, and then you will lose that entire commodity. He says, you got to diversify. And so there is good financial advice in regards to diversifying your resources, and then to labor with a diligent heart. And again, not knowing what the days and seasons and times will bring, we still labor forth and invest in the life that God has given us. Now, the second lasting lesson from life is when to rejoice in life. When to rejoice in life. Uh, Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, he was the president of Morehouse College. He wrote a classic poem entitled "Life is Just a Minute." Life is just a minute. So let me share that with you here. It says, life is just a minute, only 60 seconds in it, forced upon it, forced upon you, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to you to use it. You must suffer if you lose it, give account if you abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. Yeah, we're creatures of time. we live within the parentheses of that date of our birth to the date of our death. And so time is very valuable, and that's one of the most precious commodities, and usually a determining factor in regards to uh, the decisions we make and the paths that we take, and a lot of times where we invest ourselves when it comes to other people, and even particularly the church and the ministry of the church as well. And so to conclude chapter 11, Solomon, from his own storehouse of wisdom, teaches us to reason through life, but then also to rejoice in life. So let's look, we're going to be looking at verses 7 through 8, and we want to examine life thoroughly in our further years. Anybody there? I'm certainly there. In the further years. So verse 7 and 8 says, "The light is pleasant, and it is good for the eyes to see the sun. Indeed, if a man should live many years, let him rejoice in them all, and let him remember the days of darkness, for they will be many. Everything that is to come will be futility." Now, again, trying to get the bigger concept of what Solomon is teaching. Remember the days of darkness. We sometimes reminisce, and, we know the phrase, the good old days. And there are some things from the past that I can reiterate and think over and rest upon that were some good days of the past. But he says, remember the dark days. Remember the darkness. And why is it important to balance out the good old days with the things that weren't so good? That's where you learn life's lessons, right? And he says they will be many. Most of us remember the name Sigmund Freud. He suffered from a horrible cancer in his mouth. In 1926, he also developed heart trouble, and he spent time in a sanitarium. When he finally was able to return to Vienna, he had a desire to be driven and take in the scenes of springtime. And he wrote these words. He said, "What a pity that one has to grow old before making this wonderful discovery." See, what's he saying? He said he never took the time to just take in the beauty of creation that was all around him. We have a phrase kind of attached to that, the idea of taking time to smell the roses. Why? Because, at the funeral, they may send flowers. There may be flowers all around our casket, but you know what? Dead man can't smell any flowers. And so take time to take that in, to enjoy it. And Solomon is making the point that don't get old and then look back at all the things of your life that you missed and that you didn't see, but try to take inventory of them each and every day. Robert Louis Stevenson said, "The person who has stopped being thankful has fallen asleep." The person who has stopped being thankful has fallen asleep. We equate November with Thanksgiving, and Christians should be taking inventory and being thankful every day of their lives. But at this time of year, hopefully it's a time when we kind of emphasize that idea. But every day gives us another opportunity to experience something that God has provided for us. And, none of us know how long we will live, but what a tragedy it'd be to live a long life without learning anything from the experiences and without balancing. Yes, there's dark days, as he said, there's going to be many of them, but balancing them with the blessings that God allows us to experience. And so examine life thoughtfully in our further years. And then, secondly, enjoy life thoroughly in our first years. That's kind of the key to this sense of enjoyment. Look at verse 9. "Rejoice, young man, during your childhood, and let your heart be pleasant during the days of young manhood. and follow the impulses of your heart and the desire of your eyes. Yet know that God will bring you to judgment for all these things. In other words, there are things to enjoy in life, but of course, there's also things that can draw us away from God. And he says, be careful because you will be judged for those things. But you ever notice our church does put a lot of stock and a lot of investment and a lot of energy into our young people, into our young adults. And I think that's very important. Hopefully, those of us who are further along, we take some of the life lessons that we have learned and we invest them in the younger people, helping them to make good choices, to display good conduct, to possess good character. And why? Because God will one day bring into judgment the path that we've taken. And a further word of advice is given to young people in verse 10. He said, "So remove grief and anger from your heart and put away pain from your body, because childhood and the prime of life is fleeting." Young children really don't put together or put much thought into the concept of time. I remember those days. I mean, you didn't even know what day of the week it was. So I see that my grandchildren sometimes, they're confused. They don't know what day of the week it is, but yet they're enjoying the moment of whatever day it happens to be. But we know as we get older, matter of fact, I've been working on right here in my office on the 2025 church calendar and writing in all the events. And I know they're going to go quickly. And I'm getting them put down because they are coming up quickly. And we've got a lot of things as always planned for this year. But, younger people aren't so zeroed in on how quickly time is moving. But we know, if we've been around for a while, we know that the prime of life is fleeting. And there's a lot of evidence in that physically. I think there's some evidence of that emotionally. And that's why we need to be strong spiritually. The years of childhood and youth will pass quickly, and we don't want to waste opportunity that could prepare us for the future. And so we want to make sure that we're encouraging the younger generations, not criticizing them, but building them up, helping to fortify them in the challenges that are unique to their generation. I mentioned that before. I'm very careful now. God just put me under deep conviction. I know we've got all these different labels from, the baby boomers to millennials to Gen X to Gen Z and all the rest of it. But the reality is there is a lot of difference from one generation to the next. And it doesn't mean necessarily that there's a lot of bad things. There were bad things in any generation. But we need to help those who are in the generations behind us to share our life lessons and to prepare them for the lessons of life and they may be able to invest in us of the uniqueness of the time and era that they live in. And so the decisions that you make when you're young affect your life in many different ways. The friends that you have, the places that you go, the people that you get and form deep relationships with. And so it will sculpt your life in the years to come. And so that's why our church spends so much time, energy, and resources on the younger generation. Charles Spurgeon made the statement, he said, "Youthful sins lay a foundation for aged sorrows." I'll read that again. Youthful sins lay a foundation for aged sorrows. And I think any one of us who are further in our years would evaluate there were some things that we might do differently had we known better. And It's good if we don't camp there too long, because we can't go back and we can't change those things. But the fact of the matter is, we can share the fact that that's true. In our early years, we're laying some foundations, and we begin to build on them. And if we're not careful, it can create sorrow. But what Solomon is trying to offset by that is saying, build those things which will create a sense of joy, so that you can enjoy your life and invest in the life that God has given you and the good things that He's provided. All right. Well, Lord willing, next week we'll talk about what to remember about life, what to remember about life. So let's pray. Father, thank you for the time to just pause in your word. Lord, your word always meets us in really the deep parts of our minds. The reality of life lessons, we all have them. Some we have taught, have some lessons have taught us, and maybe we have experienced some loss, but hopefully it's something that has made us better, made us stronger. God, help us to live and to just survey and kind of take in all the good things that surround us. And then, Lord, may we use those experiences to encourage those who are coming behind us. God, thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, thanks for connecting this morning. Again, we'll be live tonight at 6:30. Hope you can tune in. We're studying the book of 2 Corinthians. And so, pardon me, the subject tonight is, how do you deal with people who have messed up? How do you deal with people who have messed up? And so that'll be our lesson for tonight. I hope you can join us. Hope you're having a good day. I do look forward to connecting with you again very soon.